Hi all, welcome to Docker Tutorials. My name is Manoj and I'm a trainer for Uplatz. And today we are going to discuss about a few question and answer for Docker interview. So let's understand what are the questions this interview will ask for in Docker, and we'll understand that each scenario. Okay. So basically, if we basics, if you understand let's say they will start why do we need Docker and what is the use of Docker in our IT industry now? Why people are using more preferring that Docker instead of our old VMware all. So if the question like the how does Docker differ from traditional virtualization technology like VMware or earlier virtual boxes? Okay. So maybe that this is a tricky question they will ask you. So it will be we know the virtual box and the VMware. Earlier we were using that, and if you are understand the OS, we are using that. The virtual box they uses a hypervisor to run multiple full-fledged virtual machine. So they used a hypervisor, okay, and each with own operating systems like in VMware basically. And let me write this question to you so that you will understand. So the question is difference between VMs and Docker. Basically, I'm writing this for just you make a note of this so we'll understand. Okay. So in the VMware, what the virtual machine, what exactly we are using? We are using a hypervisor. Okay. But in containerization, like in Docker, we use as a containerization in operating systems level virtualization methods. So rather than creating full operating systems like we used to do in the VMs, what Docker allows multiple applications to share the same OS kernel and effective segregating them into the separate container. So this way you have to explain them to the interviewer. And each container houses an application, right? Because it what is exactly a container is? It's a runtime image, right? Runtime image of a container. So each container houses an application and its dependency, but share the host OS. So this method or this makes the Docker container lightweight, very lightweight and fast. So basically, what will happen that if you are having one Docker image, so what that if you recall my what exactly Docker image have it has operating systems and the binary and library files. So it's a blueprint to make your container. Okay, so in that way it is very light and okay, so it is very light and very efficient, you can say. And and Docker approaches leads to the efficient resource use of a quick startup. I mean, the runtime or booting of the container will be very fast. Okay, so in that case, the containerization is more useful compared to our VMs. And okay, now they will ask for the component of Docker. They will say. So we know we have Docker image. Okay, we have container, and we have Docker CLI. Okay, so if you recall the architecture of Docker, so we have a Docker engine, right? The Docker engine, basically, it is what is that Docker engine? It's a heart of your Docker ecosystems in Docker. That is your Docker engine, and which will get installed on the host machine, right? When you run Docker installation. So this way you need to explain them, and this engine is based on the client server architecture with that we are installing our Docker, it will be installed. Okay. So what are the component if you they ask? Like we have the component you can say server, we have we can REST API that is called our uh, REST API, the image and all, and then CLI method. Okay, so command line interface. Okay, so the component of Docker will be like the image we have. Okay, so image also we have. So what is images? They will ask. So it's a runtime. Images. What is that images? Images are a read-only template basically used to create a Docker container. Okay, and what this image contains? So it includes the application and all its dependency like binary and library, but exclude the host specific setting. So okay, so such as mounted directories from the host OS and networking information. So everything it has, this image has. And how you will create a image? How will you pull and push image? Though there are so many ways you need to explain. Basically, by default, if we have a Docker hub, we are all keeping all our images in the Docker hub. So if you are downloading your basically if you are doing your if you hear Docker, okay, Docker pull and let's say Ubuntu you're doing, right? So Ubuntu. So what is, if you see here, let tag, it is using latest and it is downloading this from where? That is Docker Hub. So there are two way if you need to explain them. So there are, let's say this is Docker by default. It is downloading from the our Docker IO. See Docker IO, you can say library Ubuntu. Okay. And we have another way that is called customize. So in that case, what you have to do, you have to create a Docker file, right? So you need to create a Docker file and then you need to like for Ubuntu you need to create that. So how to Docker file, how to write that? Like if let's say they'll say that like we have an example, right? So from or CMD and all, we have done one. I think so many examples with that how to write a Docker file. So Docker file, if you are writing, then basically it is creating a customized image for you instead of your downloading from the Docker Hub. So that way you can create your uh, from run. It's like okay. So this way, if you are creating your if you are downloading that image, let's say this way if I did. So what it does, it downloaded the image from the Docker Hub directly, official website. And let's say I want to create or I want to add something on my application. So in that case, what I'll do, I'll create a Docker file. Okay, from run copy command. So many it's like example I'll show you here. So image one is by default our Docker Hub. Okay, and second is Docker file. So Docker file, if you are creating Docker file, in that case, what you will do, you will write, right? You will write like from Ubuntu, and then you give your version or latest. Okay, and you want to run that. If you want to run here, run apt. So this way you are getting right. Apt get update. That is layer. It will create a layer. So okay, so you need to explain them. So whatever lines you are writing, let's say if I write here, so again it will go to the one more layer. So the best practice is add here this in the same line. Apt get install, and they will ask you like what is the read layer, what is the last layer, container layer. So that all already I explained you. So this you need to recall and be ready for the interviewer preparation. Python. Okay, so Python 3, let's say. So this way, what I did, I instead of writing two lines, two layers, I just added one. So apt get update and then apt install Python 3. Okay, if you want to write copy here, you can write copy. So this way, if you are creating this Docker build, right? How will you create here? If you have your Docker file with you, the command will be Docker build command. So Docker build command will create a customized, uh, like the image for you. Okay, the environment and all that. Okay, there are so many options here. I'll show you here. I'll show you that. So this all we have to practice. So from run. Okay, and let's say I want to do copy. So how to write copy here? So I'll practice this also. Copy. So like this the current directory. Okay, the instruction copies file and directory from the host machine into the container image. So let's say container image here. You are going to going here, right? Like this. Okay, so like this, and this will copy like current directory from application to other directory there. Okay, this way you have to explain why we need to use all this all these commands in the Docker file and what are the use of this from run your copy. what copy command will do, and then what add command will do. That I think one more lab I have done with your CMD and entry point, right? So that way you have to show why, what is the difference of your printing that out. I think if you recall my previous video, I have already clearly shown the lab with command CMD different and entry point. Okay. So that way you have to show, and add command will do. It's like copy command only, but more advanced in features, like it automated decompress the archive and fetch file from the URL. Like if you have to run here HTTP, you can use that HTTPS colon something example dot com, something like file. You have file, okay, and you want to copy here appear like this, okay, and work directory. They will ask these all question like what is the use of work directory, why you are using the work directory in your Docker files. So the instructions set the working directory where the subsequent command in a Docker file will be executed. So let's say if you are in particular PWD path, okay, and you want to execute. So what happens here, whatever the command will be there, that will be executed from this. Let's say I mentioned app. So all my the files and all should be here in my app directory. Okay, PWD, if you do, it should be in app. Then only the instruction sets the working directory where the subsequent commands in the Docker file be executed. Okay, and env, if you, I have shown so many option also for this env parameter. So env, what it does, the env instructions in this command defines the environment variable within the container. Okay, so if you are something like if you are doing here a Flask, uh, let's say app, okay, equal to main dot some Python script you have kept. So it will say like uh, it should define the environment variable within the container. Okay, and expose, you know, right? So expose uh, the you can say network port, which is the port you want to open with the firewall, and then you have to expose it. Let's say 8080 or so many example we did, right? 8080 like this. So we have to command the it has been exposed with 8080. Okay, and CMD. So basically these are the most frequent command you will use in the Docker file day-to-day work. Okay, so this just keep handy, understand how to write the syntax, and how much layer it will create, what is the use, and how to execute in a Docker file. So basically there are more we have, but these are the basics, and day-to-day we will use in our Docker file. So this is mostly we use that CMD. So CMD we have done live also. So CMD command defines the default for an executing container, right? So there can be one CMD instruction in Docker files, okay? And if you list more than one CMD, then only the last command will take effect. So it's like what? How to write the command? Syntax here. So it's like Python Python 3. Okay, I wrote here. And then what I'll do, comma, main.py. Okay. Now it came entry point. So I already explained you in with the lab. So entry point is nothing but both are same, but this is an instruction that enables the configurations of a container to run the container as an executable. Okay. So that is here as a entry point. So command will be same here, but overwrite I already explained you that day. Okay, Python 3. This is the syntax you have to write, and main.py. Okay, so this way you have to practice for writing Docker file, create your Docker customized image, and then build the container. So it's pretty simple if you understand the flow of how to create your Docker file, and with the Docker build command, create your uh, Docker customized image, and with that image, you can run your Docker containers. So that this way it will work. Okay. So this way, like if you are referring your Docker architecture, it will be client, right? So there are more command we have. If you want to do practice, it's like label. This also you need to understand. So label is nothing but this command provides meta information for an image. Okay, I'll write what exactly it will do. So this provides meta information. Okay, meta info. Okay, container like this. So and argument variable. You know, this command defines a variable that allow it's arg argument variable. Actually, it allows users to be passed to the builder at the build time using hyphen hyphen build argument. So that way you can use that. Okay. And most volumes, as I think we have done a lot of practice in the volume. So it simply creates a mount point, right? You can use your bind mount or volume mounts to mount your data and assign the given name to it. So indicating that it will hold extremely mounted volumes from the. This also you can use it in your Docker files. Okay. And user also you can use it's like volumes user. So these are the practice you have to do with writing for writing your Docker files. So it will in this way best practice of a Docker file you have to uh, whenever you are creating your customized image you just follow best practices for Docker file. So nicely, I think I took one session that you have to use official base image. So build on top of the official Docker Hub images. So Docker Hub you have to go and you know right Docker Hub. If you go here, uh, Docker. So this is your official site. You have to go here. You just check all things. Okay. So this is your Docker hub. You should go and just see all this Docker official image like this. Okay. So this way you can see here. So this way, this is all the official image we have. It's like Nginx image. Okay. We used to BGBox image study we did. So if you see when it is given here, you can say, and if you pull this, if you want to pull this your image, so this copy same done here and just paste. So whenever you do, just do with the your you can say your Docker hub. Okay, so like this, and so quick reference if you go here, which all the tags we are available, which are the compatibility we have here. So you can use this one. Quick reference guide we have. What are the supported architecture we have? This you can go image updates when it happens. You can see the labels and all. With it published image artifact details. This also will give you okay, and the more information if you see here, BusyBox or Nginx, anything you can see. Okay, so you published on October 18th like this. So this one, okay, Nginx Docker containers. So whatever the version, okay, let's say you want to if you want to download particular version, you just search here. This is version 1.27.2. It is available here or not, and Alpine version. Okay, they will ask what is the difference between Alpine and the latest image. So as we know, if you compare your latest image size on Alpine size will be 30% or more than that will be lesser than your latest image. So it will consume your only necessary applications or binary library to boot the systems. That's it. Now, no extra packages will be installed if you are downloading any image with your Alpine version. Okay, so that way it has to explain that what is the use of size, how you can reduce your size for your Docker image while you're creating. So always follow the best practices and while creating your Docker file. Okay. Because and you should use official image. You should use multi-stage, I'll say, is follow proper best practice. Okay. Okay. The first one is like use official image. Official image. Second is use uh, multi-stage build. So I multi-stage okay build. I already explained you like see to I think to slash your final image size by dropping unwanted builds tools. So basically, you can use your uh, multi-stage builds like some security related, and also you can use this multi-stage. You can use your Alpine. It will be very safe. Okay, minimize the number of layers. This also I told you. Minimize your uh, number of layers. How will you minimize that? Okay. So see here. So whenever you are writing whatever number of lines you are putting on your Docker files, okay. So same number of layers will be created. So it depends on you how you are writing your Docker file here. So if you want to your number of like say, run apt update, run install, run this and all. So it will create same number of layers for you. Okay. So that will make very. I mean, it looks like we cannot. It will run, but the number of layers will be more. Okay. So in that case, what if you run in a single line? What happens? One single line created with all this your command. Okay. So that way you can reduce your minimize your number of layers. Okay. So these are the best practices you have to do and leverage build cache. So always you can say leverage build cache. So ensure the Docker file instruction, whatever you are writing, that can change more frequently, like such as copy command if you are using that, are placed towards the end. Okay, so how okay, let's see here. We are so you have to see like where and all each instruction has to run, right? When you are writing Docker file, when you are because this is with your this image with the Docker file, your image will be created, and same way your Docker container will be created. So we have to follow like the such as copy are placed towards the end. So if you are here copy if you are writing like you want to copy something you once container is created, so you have to write here at the end of the Docker files. Okay, like that you have to build the cache. I mean we can leverage the cache of that cache of your Docker images. Okay, and this would enables building again more rapidly upon making changes at later stage. So let's say if you want to change at the final, if you're copying this, if you're writing this at the end of your Docker file, so that will help you to change later also. Okay, and one more thing, like see, don't install if you're writing here on apt-get install, apt-install this Python and all some extra packages and all. So don't do that. So install any necessary package, whatever need to build that application or to build that because only that what is the necessary like whatever the minimum package required to build that application, you use that much package only because otherwise it will create cache for you and same number of layers it will create for you. So install only necessary package and dependency in your application to reduce the image size and possible vulnerabilities there. Okay, so if you're installing multiple packages, more vulnerability will come. So don't do that. Okay, yeah, and so install, we can see install necessary package. So okay, so here the interview will ask how what is the best practices for writing your Docker files. So these are the few points you have to very well explain to them. And Docker ignore also we have command. So they will ask you, have you used the Docker ignore command for writing your Docker files and also yes. I mean to exclude unnecessary files and directory from the build context, we use a Docker ignore file. Okay, so that way. So this way, they are asking like what are the best practices for your writing your Dockerfiles so that we have to use. So many things, image scanning. Okay, and then they will ask here. So what are the best practices you do? The image scanning we have to do here. Okay. Now the second question they will ask. Okay. For with the Docker file. Okay. To Docker image. So Docker file, like let's say how to start a container, how to stop container. Okay. So like Docker PS command will show to if you hear. Let's see. This is your Docker PS command. So it's nothing here, right? Nothing running here. And okay, if you have any Docker, all thing Docker images, how to see Docker images. So these are the Docker images we have. Okay. Docker stop command, right? Docker stop then container name and Docker remove command and the container name. Okay. Okay. Now one more. Let one container starts, then I'll show you the Docker command also. But before that, a few things they will ask that. Okay. So they will ask one question here: Docker client. Okay. Docker client, Docker host, and registry. Okay. See, three primary components. If you're asking Docker, that is Docker client, Docker host, and registry. These are the uh, we have here: Docker client, Docker host, and registry. So this is the nothing but the architecture component of your Docker. Okay. So Docker client, if you say CLI, so we have here three command. You write Docker build command. You can use here Docker build. Okay. Docker build, Docker pull, and Docker run. So these will come under Docker client. So basically, what will happen if your Docker client performs to communicate with the Docker host? So basically, it will go here with the Docker host here where your Docker daemon is running. Okay, so where your Docker host, what happens here? Docker daemon is running. So these all command it will go here. Docker build command. If you are doing that, it is creating your image, right? Docker pull. If you are doing that, so basically, it will pull the image from the Docker hub and Docker run. If you are creating that, so basically, you are creating your Docker container with your Docker image. Okay, so like that, they will ask the Docker client component will be Docker build, Docker pull, Docker run. Docker host here only the Docker daemon is running, and here you will have two things: containers and images. Okay, so container and so if they ask like what are the component we have, so this way, Docker host, basically you have to tell like here Docker daemon is running, and here we have Docker, I mean container and images. If you are if you are doing Docker build, then Docker image will create here. It will keep here, correct? Customized image. If you are pulling that, so whatever the Docker, it will pull that Docker image from your registry, right, from your registry. And if you are running that container, Docker run, so it will create a container and then it will here your container will exist. Okay. So Docker daemon, basically what will happen? Docker daemon is the hub of your Docker engine and which controls the access to Docker on your host machine. So it manages the state of your container and images, and it interacts with the Docker outside of the world with the Docker. You can say Docker daemon. Okay. And Docker client, basically what will happen? Docker client, it's a simplest component. Docker run pull and Docker it will do. Okay. Now here Docker registry. Okay. Docker registry it will come. So we know Docker registry are the location where what we used to do. We have to save the Docker images. Okay. It can be a public repository also or private repository, and we know like Docker hub is the public repository where we developers or any or IT DevOps engineers publish their Docker images and which can be downloaded also, and like we did, right? So we if I'm doing Docker pull, it is from Docker hub I am getting that. uh, Docker images. So when we run the Docker pull command, basically what will happen? It will pull the image from the configured repository, and when we run the Docker push command, it will publish the image to the configured repository. So basically, Docker does not save any images by default, and it is also not configured by default to use a VH repository. So, if you don't want to use a public repository like Docker Hub, then you can set up a private registry also and configure Docker to communicate with it. Okay, so this way you can use that Docker registry. So Docker registry basically we can create our Docker local registry also. I think I showed you also that. Okay, now the question will be like when the container exists, is it possible for you to lose data? Okay, so actually, if you have mounted like the volumes and all, okay, so it is impossible to lose data any data as long as the container exists. If it is container is running, we are not losing his data. We are not losing data, but until the said container is deleted by you, you will not lose any data stored in that container. So if a container is running, you have data, and container is deleted, then no. And the best practices is you have to mount the data to your host machines. Okay. Now Docker compose. Okay. They will ask. Uh, this is running. Let's see. Okay. So here Docker PS. If you see here Docker PS on running. How to stop? That's right. So Docker stop. You can do this. Paste here. Docker restart also you can do. So this way, they will ask how to stop, how to pause. I think I showed you all these things. How to stop, how to pause, how to remove. Okay, how to remove container. So this is the command. Basically, you can use. It stops. You can see now. So no container is there. Okay. I think we have. I used Docker stack, so that is why one is running here. Okay, I'll show you that. So Docker, yeah, Docker PS to see a container running. Docker PS hyphen A to see all containers, whether it's running or exited, everything it will show you. Okay, so PS hyphen A. Now, what is Docker Compose? Okay, so it will show like so to run multiple isolated multiple container at a single point of time. So Docker Compose is an essential tool in the Docker ecosystems. We can say that facilitates or that will help you to manage multiple container applications. Okay, in one shot. So it's a command line tool that allow the users to define and run multi-container Docker application using a simple YAML file that is called Docker Composer YAML. Okay. Now they will say whether you know how to write your YAML file. So I already discussed with you, like you just do practice how to write your YAML file, Docker Compose YAML file, because that is where you need to it will create one space also. If error is there, that will cause an issue. So it's proper indentation we have to follow for writing our YAML file space basically, and just practice one or two, and then once you practice, you will feel more comfortable for writing your Docker Compose YAML file. Okay, so that way you have they will they will ask you to write some YAML file also. So I already showed you, just do some small Docker Compose YAML file practice how to write it, and if you understand one and two, you will uh, basically will write another YAML file for next deployment and all. Okay, so that is how Docker Compose it will help us to deployment for the deployment. And with the Docker Compose YAML file, we can define our services, we can define our network, we can define our volumes. So always keep in mind, see whatever the container we are running now, if you are writing your Docker Compose YAML files, okay, yeah. So if you go here, we somewhere we were having, right. Is the command, or we wrote so many shells. Okay. So basically, we have deployed that Postgres and MySQL and all, right? So we wrote so many YAML file. Okay, if you recall my video, you will understand that. So it will help you to define everything like services, networks, volumes required for your application to run. And in that case, you use your Docker stack also. If you learn how to write your uh, Docker compose YAML file, then it will help you to deploy with the stack also. Okay, so Postgres we did Nginx, and so many application also we did that, right? So just use that practice and then yeah. So the answer will be for Docker compose, like yeah, it's an essential tool in the Docker ecosystem that will help us to manage the multi-container applications, and it's a command line tool where we need to write our Docker compose in YAML file, and we can define all our network services volumes in terms of container. Okay, so that will be service there. Okay, now the second question is there a limit on how many containers you can run in Docker? Okay, so the answer will be the amount of container that may be run under Docker has no explicitly specified limit, but it all relies on our constraints, particularly the hardware constraints or hardware resources, how much you are using. Okay, so the size of the program and the number of CPU resources you have allocated in your host machine, that will be your showstoppers or your manageable. You can say if you have more resources, your program is too large and you have plenty of CPU resources, then you can run a lot of containers. So it's like this. Okay. Now, see, difference between container login. So the difference between container logging and daemon logging is so basically daemon logging, what will happen? It will give you the info or error or fatal error for the levels of logging used by the daemon. Okay. So so let's say here Docker. I want to log in here, this container. Okay. So Docker exec. This is container level logging. Okay. So Docker IT. I logged in here. This command. That's okay. So basically you logged in here. So same way you can perform your, this is container level. You can perform your you can do here logging. It's container level. So log into your container and do that logging mechanism here. And this is called container level logging, and daemon level logging, that is you have to do with the daemon. So it's like on in the Docker daemons. Okay. And one question they will ask in networking, like, does Docker provide supports for IPv6? Okay. So yes, in fact, Docker does supports IPv6 also. Only Docker daemons running on Linux server supports IPv6. Okay. Networking. So if you want to Docker daemons to support IPv6, you must edit your we have one file doc edit etc the important like scaling and all they will ask. So they will ask like how do you scale Docker containers or horizontally. So basically first they will ask how you are deploying your application. So Docker Swarm or Docker Stack. So that way you have to explain how you are writing your basically how you are writing your YAML file, your compose file, and how many cluster you have. You can say Docker, we have manager and worker nodes. So if this is a manager, if you see here, Docker node ls, right? So they will ask how you are doing that doc. So this way they will ask how you are deploying your first they will ask how you configured your cluster, okay, and how many manager and how many worker node you have, and how you pretty much I have done all this lab and all. You just go step by step. You will understand. So they will ask how to scale your application horizontally, Docker container. Okay. So we have done a lot of practice. You have to explain how you are deploying application on your environment. It's a dev test or UAT, and then how you are scaling that. So basically, you need to explain from beginning how you are writing your compose file, what are the contents are there, like network, volumes, and services, which all services you have defined in your compose file, and then how you deployed that, and then they will ask how to scale that your application. So it's a pretty simple command: docker service scale and your service name equal to number of instance. So it's like 5. You have to give number of 5. So like this. Okay. So it's like docker service scale. Okay. And you give your my service whatever you created, and equal to this equal to 5. So that way, in that way, 5 number of replica will be created in your. So how it will do, whatever, let's say you have here 2. Okay. So you have 3 worker nodes, 1 manager node. So it's a manager. It will distribute the application in your cluster. So that way you have to do that. You have to explain them to your interviewer. Okay. And now CMD entry point they will ask. So yesterday I explained you the purpose of CMD. So CMD basically specifies the default command and arguments for the container, whereas entry point specifies the command and arguments that are always executed when the container starts. So I already done the lab with CMD and entry point. So it's a very important question. You have to. I think I'm sure that you will explain to the interviewer now. Okay, so CMD entry point difference, you just go through it and understand it. Okay. Now, okay, so see, is it possible for a container to restart by itself? Okay, so it's like off, on failure, or unless stopped. So yes, these are options we have available. So we have option like off. We can do if the container is stopped or fails, it cannot be resumed. So we can do like we can set that off. On failure also we can do. So these are the option we have for container setting. So off, on, off, failure, and then unless stopped. Always also we have used, right, in the container and all. So these are the container, like if you are running this container Docker, one example I'm showing you, okay? Docker run hyphen it hyphen restart you can do, okay? Container name, right? Nginx. So like this, Nginx hyphen restart policy value you can do hyphen restart, okay? So this way you have to use that. How to expose your container? So that command right? Docker run hyphen they will ask you like how to expose your container to some port. So Docker run. We have done so many practices here, so I'm sure that you will explain this. 8080, then Nginx. Okay, so this way you have to expose that. Make sure that all the port whatever you are writing, it has to be open from the firewall. Okay. Now registry Docker image. A difference between Docker image and container. So, you know, Docker image, it's a read-only template that contains the application code, binary, libraries, and all. Whereas a Docker container, a runnable install, we can say, of your Docker image. So it's a lightweight, isolated, executable environment that runs on top of your host operating systems. Okay. So Docker PS command, you can say Docker file you have to do. What is the purpose of Docker Hub? Yeah, you just keeping your Docker images here. Docker monitor your Docker container. Okay, let's say which all tools. If you recall my video, like we have a health checkup we have to do. If you want to do like which all tool you are using for monitoring your health checkup, your the container. So Prometheus, Grafana, you can say you how to install that. They will ask that. Prometheus Grafana is a major tool for the Docker health monitoring. Okay, and then they will ask you like this few command like Docker build command. You know, like Docker build command. If you are having Docker file, you need to use Docker build. Okay, what is the significance of Docker networking? Yeah, so basically we have so many options available in the Docker network. Okay, so it's like what all you can say, what all we have uh, Docker host network, a Mac VLAN, IP VLAN, so many network we have, right? Option available. So by default, bridge network we have. Okay. So these all things you can say why, how to, they will ask you like how to isolate your container in terms of networking, they will ask. Okay. So that is also, we have a non network. So that way you need to explain bridge network, how it works. If bridge network is there, your container can communicate with each other. So yes, it can communicate. All your container will go by default in a bridge network. So that way you have to explain that. Okay. And so why we are using Docker? They will ask that. So you can say isolation, automation, resource efficiency, portability. You have to explain that. Okay. Why nowadays why the container we are referring? So in that case, why we need a container? Okay. Docker Hub also you have to go in the Docker Hub because there are more information you will get in Docker Hub, and that only one site you have to pretty much full aware of that. Okay. Thank you so much for joining today's video. Thank you so much.